She is an author. She has written Cash in 30 Days, as well as quite a few other books. You have to go on her site and check them out. She's an entrepreneur. She has been an entrepreneur for a very long time, but her specialty is all about real estate. Now, I learn so much from her every day. Every time I listen to her about things that I had no idea about, flipping and buying and buying without money and all kinds of things she's going to tell you about that I didn't even know was possible until I met this girl. I was like, are you kidding me? And the things that she's done, I've been at her house and she's bought and sold a house and made like $15,000 in 10 minutes. I'm like,
can I get a loan? With your parents.
So these are the things that she's going to teach you. So definitely pay attention, because I mean, one of the things that you should always have in your portfolio is real estate and real estate investments and things like that. So listen up, Sandy Cesair, give her a round of applause, please.
All right, everybody. Give it up for Jen and Tony. They did a great job. But Jen, was talking about evil Aunt Sally. How many of you again are still dealing with evil Aunt Sally? Yeah, I got rid of that witch a long time ago, thanks to real estate. Amen. Yeah. So a little bit about me. In 1999, I moved to Tampa from Belgrade, originally from Haiti. Both of my parents are from Haiti. We were poor as hell. So I'm not even in this country legally. Well, I am now. Okay, but like seriously, the way we got here is because my parents had to pay this group of people $5,000 a piece for me and my sister to get here. Like literally, like they took on people identities that were like citizens here. Whoever had green cards that were illegal. So these organizations kind of match you up with them, and then that would bring you here. You have to learn everything about them, because once you go through the whole immigration process, they don't want to get caught. So they put you in a little shack in their home until they felt comfortable enough that you knew all the information that you had to know that could safely get you here. And my parents work in the cane field, cornfield, making 10 boxes a day. I mean, if they made $20 a day, they would be very lucky. So can you imagine having to raise $5,000 per child to get here? So that's basically how I got here. Now, I wasn't raised in a family with entrepreneurs. I grew up in Belgrade. Nobody I knew had their own businesses, but somehow in me and my spirit, I like money. I like money. When my parents, as a matter of fact, when they first came here, I was like, we're rich. We're rich that we're here. We're back in Haiti. I had images of, I'm going to be walking in gold, seriously. And then I came to this little town called Belgrade, and I was like, what the heck is this? That's nothing like what I had imagined, So I moved from Belgrade, came to Tampa in 1999 for USF. Now, y'all know at those college campuses where they have those tables, giving you t-shirts and gifts, mugs, so you can apply for credit cards. Yeah? Let's say I collected a lot of shirts. I collected a lot of shirts, and then that pair with Sally Mae, I ended up with some student loan debts of my own, right? Now, one thing I did do when I first get here is I went to real estate class, but I was 18 years old, okay? I didn't have, I was short like maybe 49 bucks. I couldn't finish the class, so I left that alone. I had like one class. And then +2, it probably was the perfect thing to do, because I would be sitting in the class in front of the man teaching it. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I was so confused. So if I had to take the test, I probably would have failed it anyways. But I went off on my own. 2 years later, went back, took it, passed it. Passed it the first time around. I like to brag about that, because most people don't.
Real estate license?
Yes, I do have my real estate license.
The first time around, and they were so impressed with me.
Yes, a lot of people actually really felt it, several times.
3 times.
Yeah, so basically I did that. I got my license, immediately got into doing mortgages. And when I started doing mortgages, it's when I learned, okay, well, I can get loans for myself. Why not start doing this on my own? And then I got interested, you know, thanks to Carlton Sheets, you know, remember those infomercials, no money down. You know, I'm like one who's a creative thinker, outside of the box thinker, you know, where there's a will, there's a way, that type of personality. So I'm like, okay, if there's a way to buy a house with no money down, listen, sign me up. I'm in. So, you know, I bought all the tapes that I needed. I got all the education that I needed. I was going through investors meetings, just really educating myself. But in the meantime, I wasn't, you know, waiting. You know how some people, they feel like they need to wait for everything to be perfect before, you know, they get started? Are any of you like that? Yeah, you, yeah. But here's like me, I jumped right in. I jumped right in, swim, I did great, and then I made mistakes too, but that's okay. All right, so what I want to talk to you guys about today, I want to show you guys how to get rid of some of those debts. Jen, she'll help you reduce the debts, but how would you, you know, making an extra $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a year, really it's in your control how much extra money you want to make. I mean, how much would that help?
A lot.
Yeah? Yeah? What could you do with an extra $10,000?
Give it to us, Sam.
And get rid of her, right? Yeah, so, you know, I wrote this book actually for, you know, a friend of mine wanted to know how to get in real estate. And I was like, okay, well, you know, let me jot down some information to give to him. And then I thought, you know what, so many people could use that same information. And then one page turned into 12 pages and then turned into 15 pages. I was like, what the hell, let me write the whole thing. Let me turn it into a book and let me share this information with other people. Because, you know, there's a lot of people out there, you know, talking about getting rich quick and getting into real estate with no money and this and that. And many of you probably wondering, is that real? How is that even possible? But, you know, I know firsthand that it is, because when I first got started, I had no money. I didn't have anything, you know. I had a selling debt, right? I didn't have anything. So, and then I made tons of money. I made a lot of money, and then I lost everything again. So I literally had to start twice with no money. Like when I say I was broke, that's like an understatement. Okay, so the next time around, you know, I was depressed for, you know, maybe 6 months. You know, you don't want to stay down too long, right? Right? So then I got up and like, Sandy, what the hell are you doing? You know, this is what you do. You know, so get your butt up and get to work. So when I was driving around, saw a for sale by owner sign. I called it. You know, and one thing I like to do is ask people, look, do you have any more houses to sell? And the man says he had 3 more houses. I was like, hallelujah, you know? So I bought all those houses from him and sold it. Within the first month, made 20 grand coming from a negative bank account, trying to start over with nothing, like literally, you know? So, I mean, I can show you guys how to do that. And I'm going to go through some of the ways you can actually do that tonight, okay? So, real estate, basically, any real estate investment activities fall under one of those categories. You have wholesaling, rehab, and retail. That's when you buy it, you fix it, you flip it to an end buyer who actually, normally there's people that wants to live there, right? You have landlording, right? That's when you want to buy a property, you put a tenant in there, you cash flow, you get the residual income every month if you have the tenants. Right? And then you have private lending. So for those of you who have the extra money, who don't have the time, and you still want to cash flow, you still want to build your wealth, well, you can lend people like me money, and then you make a good return. You know, Jen was talking about how you can reinvest your money. That's one way you can do it. But you know, you'll get a higher return, 8, 9, 10, 12% back on your money, okay? So, but what I'm going to focus on today is wholesale. Wholesale, it's like, you know, when you go to Walmart, how they sell those their items cheaper. It's basically what we're doing. We're buying low and then we're selling low. Okay? So we buy the properties low and we sell to end buyers who are typically investors. You know, sometimes they're not always, but typically investors, we're selling them at a lower price than they would normally get it. Alright? So why wholesaling? It's the quickest way for you to earn money. In real estate, very quick. I mean, a transaction, like I'm going to show you guys, can literally happen in days or weeks. But Days, hours, it's really possible. We do it all the time. Low to no cost. You can do it. I told you guys the story. I had no money. Done it, you know, you don't always need money once you know exactly what to do. And we'll show you how to do that. Credit is not an issue when it comes to wholesaling. Is it good to have the great credit? Yes, when it comes to the other aspect of real estate. But when it comes to wholesaling, you don't need to worry about the credit issue. Nobody cares, nobody knows, nobody asks you anything about that. You know? Now, if you're working full-time or part-time, how many of you guys have a job? Full-time? Yeah? How many of you work for yourself?
There you go.
Okay. All right, so work, you know, full-time, part-time, it really doesn't matter because you control your activities, you control your time, you control how involved you want to be in it. Yeah, it's really hot, right? And you know, it's not rocket science. Because I told you, when I first got started in this thing, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I really didn't. So it's not anything that's rocket science. It's not hard to learn. You just need to learn the basics. Once you learn the basics, you really can do it. And then you also want to have it, if you don't know, thank you. You know, I really believe in being resourceful. So whatever you don't know, get somebody to help you.
Amen.
You know, you don't have to know everything. I don't know everything. You know, sometimes I try to act like I do, but I don't know everything. So whatever you don't know, that's what mentors are for. That's why you want to get to know other people in the industry, and we'll talk about that. All right? So how do you get started? Well, build your team. These are people, title company, you need a title company. You don't want to be in this business with, you actually can't be in this business without one if you want to get your deals done the right way. Do you always need a title company to close? No, but then that's for, as a new person, you don't want to go there, right? What the title company does is they do the research on the property. They make sure that your end buyer, whoever's buying the property, will get a property that is free and clear of any liens judgment that can be passed along from the old owner to the new. Okay, because sometimes people will buy properties from people where they don't have a search done, and then they end up with a property that can't sell because there's too much stuff on there that's hard to remove. So you need a title company or attorney to do that. Realtors can be your best friend. Gloria, right?
Right.
Yeah, because they're dealing with sellers all the time. And if they know the market, they can educate you on the market, they can bring you deals, right? They can do research for you. They literally can be your best friends. We love realtors, okay? All right, hard money and private lenders. Now, you need these people when you come to wholesaling. The reason why you need them is because the people you are selling to, you know, they may need them. As a wholesaler, you want to sell properties to cash buyers. You don't want to deal with someone who needs to go the traditional route, you know, to pay for how they have to apply for the mortgage and wait 30 days, order an appraisal, and do this. It's just too much hassle. It doesn't work with wholesale because the properties we're buying and we're selling, you know, they're cheap, and some of them do need work. You know, lender, it's more risk for them, like the traditional lender that wants to lend money. It's more risk for them to lend to a person who's going to buy a property that needs tons of work. You know, and then they need all this paperwork. So as a wholesaler, when you selling, you want somebody who has the cash who's going to pay you. Hard money and private lenders, hard money lenders and private money lenders, their money is good as cash. You know, they can close depending on who you're dealing with, anywhere from 24 hours to they might take a whole month depending on the deal. But a lot of them on average can typically close within a couple of weeks. And that's what you want to do. Okay? So you need to know them. Until you start buying and holding and flipping yourself, but as a wholesaler, you want to know who they are because your buyers could need them. You know? They may have part or all of the money, whatever, but either way, that's why you want them on your team. And a contractor, contractors, inspectors, you need a contractor, a handyman, or somebody who knows the ins and, outs of the property that can walk through with you, because, walking through a property, you don't know what to look for, especially if you're really new to it, So the reason why you need to know that person is that can walk through and say, this is what's wrong, this is what you need to look out for. And plus, as a wholesaler, you know, the people you're selling to, you know, they want to know, well, how much work does this house need? How much is it going to cost? You can have an idea, you know. And then not only that, when you come in, when it's time to assess the deal and to see if it actually is a good deal, you need to take into account how much it's going to cost somebody, whoever you're going to sell it to. You know, if you're buying a house for, let's say, $50,000 and it needs $20,000, you need to know that, because you need to know, well, if the house is only worth 80 grand, well, you can't do that deal. You know, so you need to know those numbers, and you need to take that into consideration when you're actually negotiating with your owners, okay? You know, same thing with the inspectors. They'll look for stuff. Appraisers can actually tell you what the property is worth. Now, appraisers, they charge to do a full appraisal, but once you get to know them, you may be able to call them up and say, hey, what is this house worth? Just to give you an idea. You know, and if they might want to charge you some time until you get to know them. If not, you call Gloria. You know, Gloria can help you, right?
That's right.
All right, so other wholesalers, and the reason why you want to get to know them is because they also know the area, the market, the good ones know the business. And here's the thing, there's some people who like to worry about competition all the time. Well, in this game, really, the competition, you can really just, it's more of a cooperation than competition, because you can actually make money together, and if you use them to your advantage, you know, especially as a beginner, you know, you can actually eliminate a lot of your work for you. You can have them, in a way, you know, you guys are cooperating to make a deal work, which makes your life much easier, less work for you, and you can learn, and you make really good money without having to worry about doing the extra work that you don't even know how to do at first, you know? So, yeah, I just turned it off. All right, let me make sure. All right, so, you know, I actually talk about, you know, knowing and researching your market. Most of what's most important for you as a beginner is what I just mentioned before about some of these people, like the wholesalers who already know the market, realtors who already know the market. Because as a beginner, you really don't know. You know, you really don't know, because you have to research. 'Cause as a wholesaler, first of all, you're selling properties, you want to sell them fast and quick. But how you do that is you need to find out where the people are buying at, where the people with the money, you know, like when the market just like crashed, everybody's saying, oh, everything is so bad, but there's still people out there with cash that's still buying, that is taking advantage of the market, right? But where the hell are these people? You know, so you need to know those information, because that's where you want to focus your energy on, because you want to be able to sell your properties quick, right? So the realtors, other investors, and realtors can do like certain research for you that other people can't, because they have access to those information. So that's why you want to know, that's a big part of knowing and researching, okay? Then you have your county records and other resources where you can go to actually do those research and all the things that you need to know. Now the RIA meetings, RIA stands for Real Estate Investors Associations. They are all over the country. There's websites, and then there's some locals. In each town you go to, there are some locals. So the reason why you want to go there is because you want to basically network with other investors. There's going to be people who are buying, people who are selling, people, wholesalers, people who are landlords. These are experienced investors. Your best friends are the experienced ones. You don't need to have 1,000 buyers, 2,000 buyers, and you really actually never have that much. You know, and then you're going to run into some people that's like, oh, I got all these buyers. Like, okay, so the hell what? You got 5 good people buying, and they're buying constantly over and over from you. That's good. Like, how much you selling me?
Too much.
Girl, 5 good people buying from you over and over. You can pay off selling me 3 times over and be done with it.
Nice.
Okay? So that's how you find those people, though. And there are some other ways to do that, but you want to go straight to where the cash is, and that's where the cash is. You just want to know who's buying, what are they buying, where are they buying, find those properties and sell it to them.
All right now.
All right? Now, we buy low, we sell low. Why in the world would somebody want to sell their property a lot less than it's worth? Right? So what you want to do is you want to go after motivated sellers. You know, how y'all like my little graphic design there? Yeah.
Creative.
Yeah, you know, I'm kind of proud of that. You know? But okay, so motivated sellers is when, you know, when the pain outweighs the profit. Some people are dealing with properties that's just too much for them. Several reasons, okay? Why do people sell a house way less than it's worth? And a lot of time they know it. You know, you're not tricking them. This is not, well, let me see how I can trick this money out of this person. No, you're not. You're really helping them out. You know? You're helping them. Debt relief. Some people just need the money. They need the money. They're going through divorces. They're sick. Okay? They have tenants they don't want to deal with. We're dealing with one right now. Right? This is Lisa, everybody.
Oh, this is what you
okay? Dealing with pain in the butt tenants. They can't get rid of them. They ain't paying. You know, destroying the property. They just want to get rid of it. Okay? Some people want to retire. They want to get smaller. You know, they want to move into a smaller home or just move away altogether, and they don't want to deal with that house. Okay? And there, you know, it's more worth it to them to just get rid of it than to deal with it. You know? Balloon payments. That's basically... To explain balloon payments, when you start dealing with hard money lenders, you deal with balloon payments a lot, you know. So they probably have a property that the loan is coming due, and they have to pay it off or they'll lose the property, right? Okay, inheritance. There's some people that inherit properties they don't want, they don't care for it, they just want to get rid of it. You know, it's like they're inheriting a headache, you know. And also to an inheritance, sometimes you have siblings that can't even get along. And, you know, they're just like, let's just be done. Let's split this money however they're going to split it, you know. And, you know, some people downsizing. So there's so many different reasons. We could, like, probably spend 2 days on those things. Why people will take less money for a property and they know it. You know?
I took less for the divorce because my ex-husband was driving me crazy.
Yeah, we get a lot of those too. Okay? So, how do you find these sellers? How do you find these sellers? First of all, they're all over. You gotta keep your eyes as the wholesaler, and when you start getting into this business, you want to keep your eyes out for everything because you never know. Especially you can be driving down the streets, see for sale by owners. You know, those are good ways. But bended signs, I don't see the little signs on the corners all the time. Yeah. Okay. So bended signs. Direct mail, that's when you targeting them, specific people, like those problems I just showed you. You can target people who's going through divorces, people who have properties that's out of town and they live in another state, they don't want to deal with it anymore. There's basically so many different ways you can target these sellers, and you can just send them mails and tell them, look, I'm interested in your property, call me. And they'll call you, okay? And then you have bird dogs. That's when you have people out there doing the work for you, finding you properties, bring them to you. You give them a referral fee for their work. Okay? Realtors. Realtors, they have sellers that can bring you deals all the time. And then online, you got Craigslist and tons of options online. You know? Okay? So now, when you get the a seller to call you, or you call them, you get on the phone with them, you got a property you're interested in, and it's time to make an offer, these are the things that you need to do. Pull comps. Comps is basically short for comparables. That basically mean other properties that are similar to the one you're buying in the neighborhood. So you want to find those properties that are selling, typically within 6 months, how much they're selling for, then they give you an idea of how much you can sell yours for. It's really just that simple. You know, you take into consideration the if you see a property here that sold for $150,000 and it was really nicely redone, and then you got yours was similar, but it needs 30 grand work. So obviously you're not going to put it at the same level, but it gives you a starting point as to how much you can pay for that house. Okay. Now, once you've done your research, you want to buy it way below the market value. Okay, because remember, you're buying low and you're selling low. So you want to buy it to have enough room to sell it to somebody else and they're still getting a good deal from you, right? And it also helps you sell it quicker. All right, so now after you do your research, you're gonna make your offer, lock up the deal, and then the contract, you're gonna make it assignable. Now here's the sweet thing about wholesaling is you never really have to own the property. You know, you're buying it, you're putting it under contract, and you're selling it to an end buyer, and you don't own it. So what you're really doing is, the contract is what you're selling. That agreement that you made with the homeowner, you know, like I promised to pay you $100,000 for your house under these terms. Now I'm taking that, I'll sell it to somebody else. The contracts, I don't own the house. But because I have the contract legally, I can do that. I can legally, you know, sell the contract, assign it to somebody else. So then I sell that contract that I have to somebody else for $110,000. And the assignment fee, which is what we charge, you know, which would be $10,000. Okay? So you don't have to own. That's why credit doesn't matter. Because nobody's going to see your credit. Right? So you're going to take the contract, you sell it to another end buyer who wants that property, and you collect an assignment fee. There are instances because some rules have changed where you actually have to close on the property, and you have to see is it worth it for you to actually do that, right? And those instances are bank owned, like they have changed the rule. They don't let us assign contracts anymore. They want you to close on it. So therefore, you have to do 2 closings. You can still do it, and you do it all in the same day. So you close on that one, then with your with the bank, right? And then you turn around, you sell it to your end buyer. Now the title company, like we talked about them before, what their job is to do, they have to make sure that they record the deed between you and the bank first before they record the deed between you and your end buyer. Because it's like, well, how did you sell a house you didn't even own? You know what I mean? So you have to make sure, but that's their job. You know, that's their job. Okay? Now, these are some deals that we've got. And I'll go back through later on and tell you about how we found buyers for them. So this is a deal we got that was in March through direct mail. It was a seller. They got a postcard from us, and then they called back. We negotiated a deal with them, and we got it in the contract. That was through mailings that we sent out to them. This is another one, joint venture. Now, I was talking about other wholesalers, you know, and having them do work for you. So this one is actually, I worked a little bit, you know. So, but here's the thing. Somebody called me with the deal, right? They called me with the deal. Now, I'm obviously very experienced in the business. I run the numbers. I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to offer, you know, because he wasn't sure what to offer, right? I'm like, we're going to offer this. So he made the offer, and then another person actually sold it, which I'll cover that as well. But somebody brought me that deal. I didn't spend no money on that. You know what I mean? So how did I meet the person? Through building relationships and doing the same thing that I told you guys that y'all should do. That's it, right? Now this one a realtor sent me. Jean Street, a realtor sent me this deal. Again, that didn't cost me a dime. Just building relationships, right? This is another one we got from direct mail, from mail that we sent out to people, okay? And then this one was a bank owned that we got under contract, getting the properties through, there's different ways, online auctions, MLS, different things like that, okay? And this one also is a direct mail. And this one, the picture decided to disappear. But that's a referral. Somebody else sent me, okay? Now you get your properties under the contract. How are you going to find a buyer for it? Basically, the same way you find your sellers, you can use to find your buyers. Online, you can do mailings. And the reason why you can do mailings is because, again, we're talking about cash buyers. So if you lock up a property under a certain, neighborhood, you can look up to see, who are all the cash buyers in that neighborhood. And a lot of cash buyers, there are some people who actually have money that's moving into a property, but there's a lot of most of the investors, they are typically cash buyers or using hard money. So you can actually research specifically for those type of buyers in that neighborhood. You can send them letters saying, hey, look, I got a property in your neighborhood, you know, that you might be interested in. Call me or go to this website, check it out, whatever. Okay? There's some sources online like Postlets, Craigslist, Zillow, all these places, you know, they can help you sell your properties. And also social media, Facebook. You know, people hit me up on Facebook all the time about properties they want to either sell or buy, you know. The investors meetings, again, what did I say? Go where, I don't know what the saying is, you know, but they're there, they have money, they're buying, they're investors. Why would you not go, you know, and say, hey, this is what I have for sale. Okay, and then joint venture, like I was just talking about before, they, you know, with other wholesalers, they have buyers and they have deals. So why would you not take your deals to them, to, you know, they can market to their buyers and let them do the work for you, you know? It just gives you many options, basically. All right, so your next step is, you know, closing the deal. Once you have your cash buyers, you collect deposits from them so they don't waste your time, because, you know, you got this property, you're marketing, you promise your seller you're going to close at a certain amount of time, and then you got a tire kicker that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Don't close on the property. That makes you look bad, you know. So you want to collect your deposit from them. Typically, you want to send it to the title company, you know, to handle the money, right? And then on the HUD statement, you're going to put your fee. There's an assignment contract. First of all, you make your buyer sign, you know, because you're signing the contract. So you have your original contract with the seller, and then you have an assignment contract that is, you know, it's basically a different agreement between you and your buyer, saying that you are assigning this contract to them under whatever terms you create, really, okay? And then, you know, you go to your closing, the seller get their money, you get your money, you pay Sally Mae, you go to Hawaii, whatever, you know, and then that's it. So I'm going to go over like some of those same deals that I've showed you guys before, and like basically how we found the buyers for it. Like that's the first one I told you about. That's the one I didn't do no work on, right? It's kind of nice, right? I mean, okay, who would like to learn how to make some money and not work for it, really? Right? Like, okay. All right, so somebody brought me the house. We closed in March, and it took 15 days. Let me go back. It took 15 days to close. You know, we closed March 10th, and then we made $4,000. Okay? Now, the person who brought me the house made $3,000. Okay? And the other person who sold it also made $4,000. Like, all together, it was like maybe $13,000. This is the contract I had with the seller, right? This thing is going faster than I wanted to. Okay, so February. Don't touch this. Oh, don't touch it. I'm telling you. So February 23rd, I put the property on the contract with the seller, right? 5 days later, my other wholesaler brought me a buyer. Then we locked him up, right? This is like $12,999. That's basically the total assignment fee that was collected. And then on the 10th, this is what came to us. Somebody brought it to me, and somebody else sold it for me. You know, you can learn how to do that.